Well, hello there, and welcome to the Astrology Hub podcast. I am so happy that you are here. Now, today we're going to be diving into a topic around planetary rulerships. And this is perfect for you if you ever feel like you hit dead ends when you're looking at a chart and trying to answer specific questions. Or if you need some help putting the puzzle pieces together, if you're a more seasoned astrologer, this is going to be great for you if you want to hear how a master astrologer who's been practicing for decades, how they weave in planetary rulerships, how they weave in the modern planets, the asteroids, mythology, constellations, how they weave all these different things into planetary rulership. And or if you just love Georgia Stathis, which I am absolutely in that camp. She is an incredible astrologer with a wealth of information to share. And so I'm just so honored that she's here today on this platform to talk to us about something that is very foundational in astrological chart reading. So before we do that, I just want to thank you for being a part of our podcast community here at Astrology Hub. I was thinking before I came on here today that even though astrology is a little more mainstream than it was before, it's still pretty out there for most people. So I, for one, love having a place where we can go have this conversation together and really just drop into all of the amazingness that astrology has to offer all of us for understanding who we are, our place in this universe, and just really exploring some of these deeper mysteries of life. So thank you for being here for that. All right, Georgia, I've been thinking about you, and I have this question. You've been an astrologer for a long time, like many decades. You're one of those like legends in astrology. And I was wondering, what about astrology has captivated your attention and has held your heart and your mind interested for this long? Like, what has it done for you?
Well, it's always new. It's always fresh. There's always a new adventure. You never learn anything completely. And over 50 years of doing this, a lot of changes have happened in the world, a lot of new discoveries. There was a renaissance of classical and Hellenistic studies when I was teaching at Kepler. But I did a lot of different vocations in my life up till about 28 or 29 years of age, which was good. I think we all as astrologers need to, if you want to be with people that are in the real world working, it's good to have had experiences like that. But this was the only occupation that ever held my interest for any extended period of time. I mean, it's just immersive because there's so many levels of information. And so that's why I've been in it this long, and I hope to continue to be in it this long.
I love it. And Georgia is one of the things we were just talking about the first summit we did at Astrology Hub in 2015. And I was just so brand new to astrology. I'm interviewing people like Georgia and Ray Merriman and Rick Levine, and I don't know who any of these people are. But what I did know is these are highly intelligent individuals who are so passionate about this topic, and they've been studying it and teaching it and practicing it for so long. And it was such a contrast to what I had experienced in my, I call it my previous lifetime, sort of in a more corporate environment. I didn't run into people that 50 years in were just so on fire about something. So I really wanted to ask you that question, and I want to welcome you back to the podcast, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. I think astrologers are a very lively bunch.
Yes.
Because we are very Uranian, and we're very interested in a lot of different things. And there's a lot of depth to people who do astrology because they're operating on a lot of different cylinders, really. So, yeah.
I love the way you say that. Yeah. And I would say that's absolutely true about all of you listening or watching right now as well. You're operating on different cylinders. You're asking these questions, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so let's talk about this. Planetary rulerships. How long were you practicing astrology before you really brought this into your chart reading?
This is a very good question. It was probably around, I think, somewhere around the 5-year mark. And I think I found a book. It's an old book. It's in the library. Thirza Escobar's Sidelights of Astrology. Little tiny skinny book, mimeographed like they used to be in the old days. And I found some information in there about rulerships because none of my teachers ever taught me that.
Really?
Never. They taught you, Venus means this, the house means this, the sign means this, but to take the rulership of planetary rulership in places, I was never taught that. That doesn't mean that other teachers didn't do that, but the way I came up, because there weren't many teachers in those days. So one day it was like a giant click. That's what happened. It was like, oh my God, I could see this in here, and I can see this in here, and I can see this in here. Whereas before it was kind of Venus is in your second house. You like to make money. You like to, that kind of thing, which we all do when we're starting out. We all do. I did it. But the rulerships, and there's so many levels of rulerships. Vast amounts of materials have been written. This has been going back to, Vettius Valens, who wrote in the Hellenistic period, the first century. And over time, because culture changes, because we have more inventions, more and more rulerships get assigned. And there's a lot of issues around classical rulerships versus modern rulerships, because we didn't really see any other planets until 1781 or 1771, when they discovered Uranus, which basically threw everything out the door, basically. So, but I think one of the other ways that I really learned about rulerships was also studying horary astrology, how to use them, the prediction of the hour. I never was very good at the horary part, but I really got the rulerships. And then of course all the different cultures, all the different cultures that have different names for the signs or different names for the characters of the signs. You start to see, over time, God, this works here, this works here, this works here. So yeah, it was about 5 years in. And then when I got involved in business astrology, which is basically the same ideas, except you had to figure out a way to interpret in terms of business astrology, because there's different branches of astrology. There's medical, there's mundane, which is the study of the world. There's financial, there's business, there's classical, there's horary, there's all these different, and they all have their own kind of versions of rulerships too, even though they all are the same. They're just a little bit, that's why I think it's very important for people to study horary astrology, at least to learn about what the planets mean. And how to connect the dots. This is a way to connect the dots in a person's horoscope and give them a little bit more information than Venus is in your second house, and this is what this means. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about it. What is it, and how would you apply it to looking at a chart? So what is this concept of planetary rulerships, like the nuts and bolts of it, and then we can start talking about how you would start applying it.
Right. Well, I have an example of someone I was working with recently, actually, who has a late Capricorn rising, which is perfect for right now, because right now Pluto is sitting at, 3 degrees, but in September of 2000, whatever this is, 24, it's going to go back to 29 degrees Capricorn. So this individual is about 40 years of age, 27, 28 degree Capricorn rising, which means Pluto is sitting on their ascendant. Now, there's a whole lot you could say about Pluto sitting on somebody's ascendant. First of all, it's a major change in terms of the way you deal with your life and your personality. Okay. Or it could be health issues, or it could be, suddenly seeing things very clearly. But what sign does Pluto rule? And where is that in their chart? And in this 40-year-old's chart, we have Scorpio on their midheaven. So we're not only dealing with Pluto coming over their ascendant, where there's a change maybe in their appearance, or there's a different attitude about how they express themselves, but there's a new awareness of their 10th house stuff, because Pluto is the ruler of the 10th house and it's on the ascendant. Go to the next level with that. This person is almost 40. They have a Pluto, Saturn, Venus conjunction. That's hard. In the 9th. So we have Pluto on the ascendant ruling their midheaven. At the same time, it is squaring their natal Pluto, which happens once in a lifetime, which is kind of forcing the issue about what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
Because it's the ruler of the 10th house. But this person is also having to deal with one of his parents' health issues.
Oh.
At the same time that he's trying to maneuver his career path. Pluto on the ascendant which is also kind of scary because you feel pretty vulnerable when that happens. Ruling the 10th, which is this person's career and how they want to move forward in their career, because Pluto is intense. It wants what it wants, right? Squaring Pluto, which is next to Saturn, which is the ruler of their chart, which is, okay, you're going to have to get rid of the fears of your intelligence, because these planets are in the ninth house. Their Saturn, their Pluto, and their Venus are in the ninth house. How smart am I? Okay, so we're dealing with health issues of a parent. We're dealing with how smart am I? We're dealing with how am I going to change my career? All at the same time with one lousy planet, Pluto on the ascendant.
Wow. And so
that's
Georgia,
how you weave the story.
That's amazing. Did this person come to you? So tell me, the person sets up a call with you, or maybe it was a personal contact. I don't know. And they say, I need a reading. When you get their birth information, what is the first thing you do? Are you looking at big players like Pluto or Saturn and like seeing what they're doing? Do you have information about like what they're going through in specifics that they need help with?
Those are really perfect questions, because I used to not do this. Now I do it. Okay. First thing I ask them is, what are your 3 most important bullet points?
Like bullet point questions, like, or bullet point things that are up. Yeah.
Right. Because I didn't ever do that, because when you're younger, you got the ego, I'm going to show this person that I know how to read a chart. I mean, I was never really like that, being a Pisces, but it happens with a few people. So this way it cuts through all the garbage. Okay, these are their 3 issues. And sometimes I'll unfortunately get a whole composition. So I say short bullet points, Yes. I know that going in, but I right away look at the slower planets, because I am a modern astrologer. I'm not a classical astrologer, although I do sometimes use Saturn for Aquarius. I sometimes do use Mars for Scorpio, because they're faster moving. And if I want a quicker answer, for timing, I can use that. But the first thing I always work with is where Saturn is hitting their chart. And why is that? Because Saturn is the issue of fear and limitation, or your perception of limitation. And then I look to see what house Saturn rules in their chart, not only where it's placed natally, but the house that it rules, because you have to look, like if Saturn rules your 8th house, say, which is your ability to, let's just say, the ability to attract to you income. And you have Saturn, let's say, in the 3rd, and it rules your 8th house. Okay. Saturn, it rules Capricorn. It's in your 8th Saturn, and your Saturn's in your 3rd house, which is the way you process information, the way you communicate. It may be very difficult for a person in their younger years to communicate effectively about how they make money, or how they organize their assets, because the 8th house is about, planning something. It may be difficult for them to communicate. Maybe they've tried to communicate about it, but they've been criticized. And so you work with the fear issues there. Then you look to see where Saturn is moving through the chart right now. And I always try to do all the Saturn and the Pluto stuff first. And then I always try to close up with the Jupiter stuff. That's a good policy for any astrologer. Yeah.
Because you're kind of you're doing the tougher stuff, the deeper, more vulnerable, intimate things first. And then you go to the good news.
Yeah, do the pain first, and pleasure is a true reward. That's not mine. That's Dave Grant's motivational thing, and I love that. He's do the pain first, because I have in my own life I've had to deal with Saturn. Now, I do have a friend, an older friend who's been an astrologer for a long time, who has a very strong Jupiter in her chart. She always gets the easy people. I always get the hard people, and I think we will get who we are in our life.
I've heard astrologers say that and even that it kind of comes in waves. Like if they're going through a certain transit, then they'll get people going through that transit. So Georgia, I just wanted to say something to the audience. When Georgia's talking about the way that she just decoded that chart, and she bounced around going, ruler here, house here, and you're confused at all, it's okay. Like it is a lot to try and make sense of all at the same time. I'm actually taking a mastery class from Georgia right now that she taught for our inner circle. It's a 2-hour and 16-minute class. And I swear it is taking me like over 5 hours to get through an hour and a half, because as you speak, there's so much in every slide that I'm going to my chart. I'm like trying to figure it out and put it all together. So just take your time with it. Like Georgia said, she did this year 5 and she started to integrate it. And just know that there is this level to go to where, if you're looking at the chart and your interpretations feel a little flat, you're like, God, there's got to be more. Or like, this person's asking me about this thing, but I can't figure out why that's happening in their life just based from that really simple interpretation. This is going to help you get to that layer, but you don't have to do it today. Just take what you can, like take the gems that you can and leave everything else. Okay, I'm done with that.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, you can't expect to jump in the deep end of the pool if you don't know how to swim.
Yes.
Or you could, but you'll drown. Yeah.
So there's this thing with the classical rulers and then the modern rulers. How do you make sense of these things and maybe just go through them? Can you tell us what they are, the classic rulerships?
Yeah, the classic rulerships are named after the 7 original planets that were seen without a telescope. Start with Aries, ruled by Mars. Taurus is ruled by Venus. This is still modern also. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Cancer is ruled by the moon. Leo is ruled by the sun. Virgo is ruled by Mercury also. Same Mercury, different kind of energy. One solves problems, this one analyzes problems. Libra is Venus. Now we get to Scorpio. In the classical rulerships, you have Mars ruling Scorpio. You don't have Pluto. In modern rulerships, Pluto rules Scorpio, but we sometimes use Mars. Then you have Sagittarius ruled by Jupiter. Then you have Capricorn. Saturn rules Capricorn, but classically, Saturn also rules the next sign, Aquarius, which in modern is ruled by Uranus. But really, it's an interesting thing with Aquarius because there's the wild kind of Aquarius, and then there's the kind of stick up there, what kind of Aquarius. They hold a position and they're not going to let go of that position. That's a very Saturn version of Aquarius. You see both. And then there's Pisces. In the old days, before they saw the outer planets, it was Jupiter. But now we have Jupiter and modern is Neptune. So we use both.
So Georgia, we went through the rulership.
Okay.
You gave that great example. Let's talk a little bit more about how we apply this concept of planetary rulerships into the chart reading equation.
Okay, let's just say somebody has, we all know Mercury is about communication. It's about writing. It's about analyzing. It's about commerce. It's about sales. It's very, it's like Jiminy Cricket, actually by Jiminy Cricket. So let's say a person they really love to write. Let's just say that. They really want to write for a living. They're not sure what to write about. Let's say they have Gemini in the midheaven, so they have a desire to write.
Natally,
yeah. Natally, let's say they have Gemini in the midheaven. Okay, that's a person who wants to either write or talk or have a couple different occupations. They want a mercurial, changeable occupation. Maybe they say they want to write. They're not sure about what the topic is. Okay, then you look to see where their Mercury is placed in the chart. This is really simple. Okay, all right. Let's say Mercury is in the 5th house. What's the 5th house? 5th house is children of the body and children of the mind. 5th house is speculative ventures. 5th house is portfolio management. 5th house is convention or meeting planning. 5th house is dating. 5th house is dating. 7th house is making commitments. Okay. So maybe they should write or do a dating app, or maybe they should write children's books, or maybe they should do something write about stock market portfolios. I mean, that's pretty simplistic, but the ruler of the 10th is in the 5th.
The ruler of the 10th is in the 5th. Okay. So if I was that person and I was saying, I want to write, but I don't know I don't know what I want to write about. Would you just start rattling off some of those options? Like, have you ever thought about writing a children's book? Have you ever thought about, how would you broach that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would be looking at a lot of the other parts of the chart too.
Okay. So tell us about that. What else would you be looking at?
What I would also first do before they even show up, because this is me, I'm a kind of a neurotic when it comes to preparation. I would have done the transits to the chart, of course. I would have done their secondary progression, and then I would have done their solar arcs, which move very, very slowly, but those are important.
Hmm.
I would have done the eclipse hits to the chart.
Oh,
I do
okay.
all this before they even show up.
How long does this take you?
Oh, at least an hour.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
fussy. I probably don't need an hour, but I like to write things out because I'm a hand to brain person.
Me too. Yeah.
So, that's how I remember things. And it's all in colors and, it's insane. But anyway, I would look at all that. So our job as astrologers is to validate the subjective experience they are going through. So maybe they're saying to me, I am thinking of writing a book for children or doing a little podcast for children. Maybe that's already in the ethers because most people know something they'd like to do, but the timing is off. Okay, so let's look at their secondary progression. I don't do much with secondary progressions, but there's one thing I really pay attention to is when the secondary moon moves around the chart. It moves 1 degree a month. It will come back every 27 years to the same spot in the chart. If that secondary moon is about to go over their 10th house cusp or their ascendant, another angle, or their 4th house cusp, another angle, or their 7th house cusp, number one, they're about to produce something. They're about to create something because the secondary moon going over one of the angles is you have a baby of some sort. You either have real babies or you create a baby. I mean, I've seen that where suddenly it comes into, it's birthed
right
on the angle. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that would be one piece of timing. The second thing I would look at would be what are the aspects right now to their natal Mercury. Okay. But let's give another example. Let's say they have natally, they have Gemini on the midheaven.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say they have natal Mercury in Gemini. Let's say their Mercury is in Gemini at birth.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's in their 10th house. Well, the first thing you would know right away when you see Mercury in anybody's 10th house is their job or their work in the world will have something to do with communication.
Mm.
But this person wants to do some writing right now. Where's transiting Jupiter right now? Transiting Jupiter is in Gemini. It will be there through spring of 2025. It'll only come back to that Mercury every 12 years.
Mm.
And Jupiter, Jupiter rules what? Jupiter rules Pisces and Jupiter rules Sagittarius. Okay. So where's Pisces in this person's horoscope? Pisces is probably on their 7th house. Sagittarius is on their 4th house. So Jupiter right now is in Gemini hitting their Mercury. It is bringing the 4th house of Sagittarius because Jupiter rules Sag, and it's bringing the 7th house, which is Pisces, Jupiter, up to Mercury. So maybe they're going to write something at home, but they may need a writing partner because Jupiter rules the 7th house. They may need one. They may not think they need one, but one could show up.
Hmm.
And that's how you work with it. I actually give them dates when these things will probably happen. I don't say this is going to happen on this date, but this is a time frame in which these kinds of things could show up for you.
I see.
Or maybe they want to write about housing stuff, or maybe they want to write about, fixing things in your house. Jupiter rules the 4th.
Could they be writing a relationship book, maybe?
They could write a relationship book. Very good.
Okay.
Very good. Partnership book. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you're taking all of this into the equation, into the puzzle that you're putting together. And then you're looking at the secondary progressions, but really just the moon, when the moon's crossing over the angles is mainly like the main thing you take from secondary progressions. Is that
That's
true?
the first main thing I take from secondary progressions. The second main thing I take, which is very complex, and it doesn't happen very frequently at all, is if a planet in the progression is going direct or retrograde that year. And that's very rare, I do have a personal story of that. I remember Alan Oken, who I mentioned we were just talking earlier, who was a very well-known astrologer, wrote a lot of great books. And in 1981, I remember this, I was pregnant with my daughter. They had a big Jupiter-Saturn conference with Liz Green in Berkeley, Stephen Arroyo. I was pretty young. I was 30-something. And I went to him for a reading, Alan Oken. And I've been doing it a few years. This is something I learned with Alan Oken, okay? He says to me, do you know that your secondary Mercury is going direct this year? because I was born with a direct Mercury. I didn't know a retrograde between birth and 30. I wasn't paying attention to that, right?
Right.
And I said, no, I didn't. He says, yeah, it's going direct. And it's kind of the dispositor of your chart. This is going to be a very important turning point for you in terms of your work and your writing. And he was right. I also had a baby that year, which is Mercury rules children in horary astrology. I had my first child that year, and Mercury was going direct. I thought I'd never have kids.
Oh, wow.
That was a trip.
Interesting. Okay. So there's something with direct. Well, but was it because Mercury was the dispositor of your chart that he like honed in on that?
Well, that plus Mercury was the ruler of my second house, still is.
Yeah.
And also I have Mercury in the 10th house natally. And it rules my 5th house of children also.
Oh, there you go. Okay. If you're listening and you're going, what's dispositor? I have to say that we have a class called Decode Your Cosmic Blueprint that Donna Woodwell taught. And the dispositor was at like lesson 4 or 5. And literally, this is where all the students would leave. Not all the students, of course. Many people finished the class. But if we were going to lose students, it was right there because it was a really hard concept for people to apply. And I don't know exactly why, but it was like this mind game that just was really hard for people. Can you just touch on this for our more intermediate students? What is the dispositor and why does it matter?
And not everybody has a dispositor. Okay, sometimes you have 2. What it is basically is, and the way when I do it, I actually draw it out so people have a sketch of how it works.
Mm.
You know, where I start with whatever I start. I start with the sun, like say the sun in Pisces, and I put a circle around it.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I do is I draw an arrow down. Where's my Jupiter? My Jupiter's Capricorn. Put a circle around that. Draw an arrow down. Where's Saturn? Because Saturn rules Capricorn. And I make this diagram with circles, arrows. And with mine, it comes out to Mercury.
So that's like the final piece. Like you can't go any further.
You can't go any further. And that is not what somebody always notices when they look at your chart, is if you have a final dispositor.
And so what if you do?
If you do, it really is a high influence in your life. I mean, if you have a final, you'll always go towards that sort of thing, if that makes any sense.
Yes. Even more than your ruling planet?
No, I think your ruling planet for sure, but it's just like it's a little whipped cream on top of the sundae. Gives you a little bit more information, right?
Yes. And this is basically to your point earlier about how it is endless. And this is what I say when people join the inner circle, and especially when people are new to astrology and they're so excited, they're curious, they're interested, and they want to like master chart reading in a week or in a month or in a year even. And it's kind of like, oh, I hate to be the bearer of bad news because it's both bad news and good news. The bad news is this is going to be a lifelong study.
Oh, yeah. It's not like overnight.
No, there's no quick, like, oh, now I know, and now I know everything, and now I'm a master and I can teach, blah, blah. But the cool thing about that is it is endless. It's endlessly fascinating. And what I have found is at every single threshold that you pass as you're learning astrology, you are learning more about yourself, learning more about the universe and how it works, learning about the people in your life. It's not like you have to get there before it's useful. It's useful the whole time. Even if you only know a little bit, it's still like, even if you only know your moon sign, it can be mind-blowingly helpful.
Yeah, it's never ending. I mean, the thing about it, if you're going to really seriously study this, and some people don't want to, that's fine. It's not their thing. You're going to have to be patient. That's not a word that people like these days. It's not like, you can order the app and get the information. It's not like that. It really requires, and you don't have to think also that you have to immerse yourself 24/7 for the next year. It's not like that either, because that's not the way to learn, because you got to incubate some concepts.
Yes.
Like if you're going to work with a rulership concept or a dispositor concept or, the secondary moon work with that for a year. Try every single thing you can with a dispositor, inside out, turn it upside down, ask questions, look at all these different charts that you can get at Astrology and all these well-known people, famous people. In fact, the other day I was looking at, weird thing to look at, but I was wondering, when did the Supreme Court begin? right?
Yeah.
So I got the chart from Astrodienst, I think it was. And then I thought, okay, this is interesting. They're going through a lot of changes right now. So where's their solar arc and where's their secondary progression right now? Okay, I looked it up. This is what you have to be curious. And what did I see in this particular Supreme Court chart? I saw that their progressed midheaven, which is how the world sees them, right, was at 29 degrees, the last degree of Leo, about to change signs to 0 degrees of Virgo, which is always for any sort of occupation or the way you're seen in the world, there's going to be a big change that year. And it just so happens that 29 degrees Leo, 0 Virgo is also, this is the stuff you learn over time, is also the fixed star Regulus, which is great heights. And if you don't do things responsibly, great falls.
Ooh.
You have to make the choice.
Oh, God.
And that's, okay, they're going from a sun-ruled midheaven by progression to a Mercury-ruled. In other words, the ego needs to step aside. I'm not saying that they're right or wrong, and I'm not being political, but I thought that was fascinating.
Fascinating.
That was fascinating. This is what you do. If you want to work on just 29 degrees, I'm doing a whole bunch of classes on 29 degrees this year. Look at charts where things are 29 degrees. Look at progressions where they're 29 degrees. The ruler of those houses will change.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, this is what I mean. When you work with stuff like rulerships or dispositors or anything, give it a year to just look at one thing. Man, you can learn a whole lot. I mean, and you go down rabbit holes. That's a problem. Sometimes you'll have 20 books next to you, that's me.
Speaking of, is there a planetary rulership book that you would recommend?
There are a lot of them out there. One that I really love is by Dr. Lee Lehman, who was our president at Kepler. This is based on classical astrology. It's called the Book of Rulerships.
Okay.
That's one. I did notice, believe it or not, Christopher Renstrom, who I love Christopher, he actually has a rulership book, which I didn't know he had until I went on Internet Archives. I went through AIP and then I went on Internet Archives, and that's there. There's a very old book that's a little out of date by Rex E. Bills called the Rulership book. There's also Munkasi's book on concept dictionary. Unger and Lillian Huber wrote a book on rulerships. There's been a lot of things written on rulerships. There's medical astrology. I mean, if they go into our Alexandria iBase and put in rulerships in the subject line, it'll bring up a whole bunch of books that we have cataloged or where you can find those books that have that information in them.
Okay. Let me interject here. This is the perfect time. Couple things. Number one, we're having a big launch party around Georgia's Planetary Rulership mastery class that she taught in the Inner Circle about a year ago. It's been only exclusively available to the Inner Circle up until now. We're going to put it in the Academy. We're running a special on it. So we'll put the link if you want to take a course from Georgia on this and putting it all together. She goes through all the houses. She goes through all the planets. She really puts it together. And that's the thing I've been spending hours and hours on. So you can get access to that now. The other thing is for the launch party for this, we're releasing it from the vault. The other thing is she's going to do a live Q&A and chart reading session for any of the students who participate in this little launch party. So that's going to be extra and added. Inner Circle members, you're invited to that too, if you already have this in your library. The final thing is when you purchase this course, you will also have the opportunity to donate to Georgia's Alexandria iBase project, which she was just talking about. And this is this online library resource that helps any astrology student locate any astrological text that they have cataloged.
So far cataloged, yeah. We got about 20,000 right now.
There's texts all over the place, you guys. It's like, it's this wild, in corners of the universe, all these amazing astrological texts that would be hidden to all of us, if not for the work that they're doing at Alexandria iBase. So we at Astrology Hub love supporting Georgia, love supporting astrology in this way. So we're making donations to the Alexandria iBase to keep this project alive. It's a nonprofit. They're doing it because they love it and they want to preserve these texts for all the astrology students for for centuries to come. So when you join the launch party, get the Planetary Rulership class, you'll have an option to donate, and you can donate there. And then any of these books that Georgia's talking about, these are also great starting points. If you're not ready to do a class yet, you can read some books and get your feet wet that way. I love that this is a project you've taken on. We have these astrologers in the field who are really taking responsibility to make sure that the astrology stays pure and that we have access to all the great minds that have come before us. We can stand on their shoulders, and that these things don't get lost forever, which could happen. I mean, even I know some astrologers who pass on, they donate their entire life's work or their library to you at Alexandria iBase. You can go to astrologyhub.com/rulerships to get access to Georgia's class. And we're doing, around our little launch party, there is also a promotion for this period of time. And then you'll want to make sure you get in before we do the live Q&A and chart reading, which will give you a chance to get your chart read. Georgia will be demonstrating these concepts with students in it. And then you can also donate to Alexandria iBase at astrologyhub.com/astrology library. Astrologyhub.com/astrology library. And we pass that 100% through to Georgia. There's no like middleman, anything. So that just goes right to
you were
Georgia.
great. You helped us get through the summer with our last fundraiser. So we wanted to thank you all on this podcast and thank Astrology Hub, because we needed to get through the little hump this summer. So, I mean, we're back in again. It's, it's nonprofit. It's not like it's not like we're raking in the dollars,
Right.
But we'll do it as long as we can. And then we won't do it anymore, but we'll keep doing it. And I'm very proud of our small board. They've been with me since the beginning.
Amazing.
They've never left.
Wow. Well, that's a testimony also to you, Georgia.
They've never left. They're amazing. They're just amazing. So,
okay. Well, this has been so much fun. I actually get to go hang out with Georgia in person in California. She lives close to my parents. And so I can't wait to get together for dinner and just hang out, because we just have so much fun. But I want to thank all of you so much for tuning in. If you hung out with us this whole conversation, you're already like pretty initiated as a student is my thought, and or you're about to be initiated as a student, because that was a lot. We went deep, we went into it, but I hope that you got some gems that you can start to play and practice with. And like Georgia said, maybe just apply for a year and see what it does.
Just do one thing, just pick one thing that's fascinating to you. And you usually, if I can add one thing, the way you really learn it is you see something in your chart that you didn't see.
Yes.
And then that's the rabbit hole. That's the hole that you go down, right? And that's what happened with me, with Alan Oak and Mercury Direct.
Yes.
5 years rulership. And then you just do that. And you don't worry, please, folks, if you're studying, don't worry that you're never going to get it right. I've known people, if I can just say this and then I'll let you go. I've known people, literally students of mine, one student, Alice Williams, I remember her. She'd been doing it for 35 years. She was a Pisces with Virgo rising. She never thought she was good enough to do the work. And she was good. So this is the thing. It's not about ego. It's about, do you have curiosity? Do you want to open up parts of your brain? It's sort of like a cosmic Sudoku, okay? That will take you to places that you never even imagined. And you'll see it in the news. You'll start seeing things in the news. Like right now, Jupiter's in Gemini. What is everybody wearing? Vests. Mercury rules Gemini, rules the lungs, rules the arms. Jupiter's in Gemini.
Wow.
North Node's in Aries right now. What's the color that's out there? Reds and pinks. Aries color is red and pink, right? It's every place.
Wow.
So that's what's fun.
That's so fun. And it's alive, right? Astrology is alive. It's life. Yes.
It is. It is.
Okay. Well, this has been such a blast, Georgia. Thank you so much for continuing to make contributions to this platform, to share your wisdom, to share your light, to share your enthusiasm. You are such a gift to all of us.
And you are too.
Thank you, Georgia.
You are too.
And thanks to all of you. Thank you so much for being here, for being a part of our community, for being curious, for asking the questions, for opening up your mind like the Sudoku that you just said. That's so cool. And for being engaged in these conversations. We have so much fun sharing with you. So thank you for being here. Go check out the launch party release. Check out Alexandria iBase and all the different resources. We'll put those all in the show notes, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Take care, everyone.